Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, it is just me blessing you with my presence yet again. First things first, thank you for watching on YouTube. If in fact this content brings you value, share it with somebody that could benefit from watching it. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, thank you and leave us some sort of review. Also, share this episode with somebody that you think would find any sort of value in this. So these episodes that I've been putting out on a weekly basis on Wednesdays are generally pretty short in nature, and I kind of like it. Something that I wanted to talk about today, which was very profound for me whenever it was taught to me in the beginning, was that when I got sober, this was the most selfish time of my life. And at first it didn't make sense, but then it started to make sense. So I wanted to kind of unpack it a little bit over the next 5 to 7 minutes. Oftentimes when I talk to clients and they're coming into treatment, whether it's for their first, 5th, or 15th time, I tell them, look, first thing that I want to tell you is that this process right now, you need to be extremely selfish. And oftentimes, you kind of get that little odd look because we've spent the last X amount of years being selfish, hence why we're drug addicts and alcoholics. We're selfish by nature. So why are you telling me that now I have to be selfish? When we get sober, we're very easily influenced. We're influenced by a lot of external things. And if we allow ourselves to continue to be influenced by external things, then it ultimately takes away from what we're trying to accomplish, which is long-term sobriety, building a solid foundation of sobriety, having healthy relationships with people. So we want to lessen that, and that requires us to be selfish. When people come into treatment or they decide to get sober, they will let outside influence dictate what their sobriety or recovery process looks like. A lot of times people say, well, I got to get back to work. Well, my family needs me to pay the bills and, I got to be at work to pay the bills. Or, my relationship with my spouse is hanging on by a thread. I got to come here. I got to do this treatment thing and I got to get back to her. Or I got to get back to him, or whatever your specific situation is. I've even heard people wanting to cut the treatment process short because they have to get back to their pets. So again, the excuses, and that's what I will call them, excuses are things that are ultimately going to take our eye off of the prize, which is sobriety. And so when I say we need to be selfish, and I just had this conversation with one of our clients that we currently have here. It's his first time in treatment. He was under the impression that he came up with himself that he's going to do 30 days of treatment and he was going to go back home and go back to work. Through having conversation with him, and again, this is something that I want our clients or anybody really to kind of come up with this themselves. Through conversation, he started to understand and realize, I do need to be selfish at this time. I don't need to rush back to work. My job will survive without me. I need to make sure that I get myself right before I can be of service to them. And just through having conversation with them around that, this is a big company that you work for. They want you to be better. You want yourself to be better. I understand that you want to get back to work because you're a good person and you feel like you owe it to them. But you owe it to yourself more to respect yourself enough, to value yourself enough, to take this opportunity ahead of you to get yourself right. Because at that point, once you're good, you're going to be of much more better service to them when you do go back to work. And he was like, oh, that makes total sense. And there's a reason why there's things that are put in place. You have short-term disability, you have FMLA, there's programs and such out there that protect your job, because this is something that we, as addicts, as alcoholics, it takes time for us to recover from this stuff. And 9 times out of 10, the whole 30 and out thing, do 30 days in treatment and go back to your hometown, it doesn't work that way. If it did, well, boy, I would be very surprised. Through working at this point with thousands of people, I've seen a handful of people that are able to come to treatment, do 30 days, and they go back home and they do remain sober. Again, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the other 99% of people out there that doesn't work for. So again, when we are doing this, and treatment isn't necessarily the only way to get sober. I see people get sober all the time that just get sober through Celebrate Recovery, through some sort of 12-step program. They get sober through the church, through ministry. There's a bunch of different ways to get sober. I'm just saying, coming from a treatment component, this is what I see. But even in Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Celebrate Recovery, if you're in a situation where somebody wants you to go to some event or something and it interferes with your meeting that you've been going to now for a few weeks, and you've met some people there and you've developed a lot of good relationships there with people, don't let whoever this person is take that away from you. We need to think selfish. We will get to a point where we can no longer be selfish, and we have to be selfless, and we have to start thinking in terms of how can I help somebody else? Because the more that we get sober, the more that we're in this kind of sobriety lifestyle, this recovery lifestyle, we start to understand that other people poured into me. I was being selfish in a good way, and I allowed people to pour into my life and help me in my recovery process. But at some point in time, that kind of flips, and now we are the person that it's our responsibility and it is our duty to pour into that person that needs the help, just like we were just maybe a couple of months ago. So that's why I tell people this is one of the most important times of your life. When you take that plunge to decide to get sober and recover from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, we need to think in terms of how is this going to benefit me and my sobriety. So that is it. That is what I wanted to talk about in this episode of Real Recovery Talk. I thank you for tuning in. Again, if you have found value in this, please take a minute to share it with somebody, leave a comment, ask us a question, give us a review, whatever the case is. But ultimately, what we are trying to do is help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.